letter S, letter E.
He was a fit and active man, suddenly struck down by a stroke 7 years ago. Now Tony Nicklinson from Melksham in Wiltshire is completely paralysed, only able to move his head and eyes, communicating with the help of his wife Jane via a letterboard and computer.
Now, my wife and I live on benefits and I am totally dependent on others for everything. Nowadays I am just resigned to a miserable existence.
It's because of that that Mr. Nicklinson, who's 58, wants doctors to be allowed to end his life at a time of his choosing without facing a charge of murder.
He's a very social person, a typical rugby player, a bit of an alpha male, you know, life and soul of the party. And all these people that say, you know, that he's alive and that should be enough, and it's not, you know. And I think a lot of these people, if they could live Tony's life for a couple of weeks, I'm sure an awful lot of them would change their mind, really.
Today, a High Court judge paved the way for a legal review. Despite government claims, this could only be done by Parliament.
Mr. Justice Charles said the case had great social, ethical and religious significance. And in his ruling, he said Mr. Nicklinson had an arguable case for a judicial review. But that doesn't, of course, mean that the law on assisted dying has suddenly changed. Rather, that there will now be a fuller hearing in front of another judge later in the year.
At home in Wiltshire, Mr. Nicklinson had this reaction.
I am delighted that the issues surrounding assisted dying are to be aired in court. Politicians and others can hardly complain about the courts providing the forum for debate if the politicians continue to ignore one of the most important topics facing our society today.
But a campaigner for changes in the law on assisted dying was cautious about his chances of success.
We believe that it's right in certain prescribed circumstances where there are safeguards that somebody should be able to take their own life, and it might be that they would be given assistance in relation to that, for example a prescription of drugs that might kill them. But we were strongly of the view that it was a step too far to allow a doctor deliberately to kill one of his or her patients.
Despite some changes to guidelines on prosecution, these do not apply to doctors. That's what the court will now have to decide.